Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 15 of the Game Changers. Week 15, people. We have made it 15 weeks, Carla. Two people that have never done anything like this before in our lives have made it through 15 weeks. It's like the NFL season is almost over. It's coming to an end, and we've made it so far. So I know there's a few new people here tonight in the chat. I'm seeing everybody saying hi. And if you wouldn't mind, kind of hop out of the chat, give us a like, subscribe, hit that little subscribe button. Maybe we won't get fired if you do that. So we don't want the sports affiliation to boot us. So it's a special time of year. If you celebrate holidays, we want to be respectful of what everybody celebrates. But, so Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, whatever you celebrate. We do appreciate that you're here with us tonight. We are so lucky to have the sports affiliation to allow us to have this platform as two women, getting to talk to all of these wonderful guests. And I feel very blessed. So it's a time of a season to be blessed. And I do want to express that we appreciate everybody very much. And it's not always easy for some people during the holidays. You got rough things going on. Our DMs are always open. It doesn't matter, if you have something you want to talk about, shoot it to us. But I would like to have Miss Carla. I know you have a vested interest in our guest tonight. Okay, I know you guys are very, very close. So would you do the honors of introducing him for us?
Of course. Talking about Jim is a privilege to me. So we met 2 years ago through Doug Orr. And all I used to hear from him was, Jim Coventry this, Jim Coventry that. And I was so eager to meet you. So I did. And in 2021, I went with him to the expo. And man, do we have a funny story to tell when I went to the expo, and we will share that after. So a lot of greatness is hidden under your belt. From King Classic Fantasy Football Champ in 2021 to FSWA Football Writer of the Year in 2022 and more. I cannot wait for you to share them with us tonight. Jim, welcome to our last show for the year. Wendi and I are really, really super happy and excited to talk to you tonight. How are you, Jim?
So I was one show from missing the cut.
Yes!
I would have been iced out. Ouch, that would have hurt. No, so excited to be here. I appreciate you having me. Love you both. Just the wonderful things you've been doing. It's about bringing people together, and that's what you're doing. That's what I say the community's about. We love football. That's what the common interest is. But you're doing what it's all about, so thank you for this great work you're doing.
Oh, thank you for saying that, because our show is like the last thing, we're not talking about stats and start sitting, who, has the most yards. We want to know about you. So we first met at the Scott Fish Bowl live draft in Chicago earlier in the year. Jim was sitting at the table behind me, and I got to admit, I walked in there and I was very intimidated because there weren't very many women there. I want to say, actually, there were two that were drafting. It was myself and Bethany, which, she's awesome. But you were sitting behind me, and I was immediately drawn to you because of your personality and your general presence in the room. It's unparalleled. I just couldn't believe, like, everybody is attracted to you and they all want to talk to you because you're so, your personality is just so bubbly and positive. And that's where I was at most of the day, was with Jim. So you helped, my TikTok debut was with Jim. Okay. First of all, I was doing his camera work all day at this. Like, I felt important. Okay. I'm just like, man, Jim's like, hey, can you come and do this TikTok with me? Can you take this picture? Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm like, oh my God, yes. So then he comes over, he goes, hey, I want you to do a TikTok video. I'm like, no, I'm like, no, that is not going to happen.
I thought you ran away on me. I
did.
I had to go seek you out.
You did. You came and found me and made me do that. But you know what? I had the best time between you and Andy Behrens that day.
The Raffle King.
Oh my God, the Raffle King. And I will say that my TikTok debut, I made the call of Austin Eckler. And this man disappointed me this year so bad. But you know what? I still love him.
Yep.
I still love him. It hasn't changed. He didn't have a great season for me, but that's okay.
Yes. I mean, he sprained his ankle. It's a high ankle sprain. Sometimes players don't come back. So what? You made a good call. You had good reasoning. It's all that matters.
You know what, though, Jim? I had Austin Eckler and Mark Andrews as my first two picks.
Oh, hey, in the Kings Classic, I had Jonathan Taylor, who I knew might not play, and Nick Chubb.
Oh,
Different order. Took Taylor in a second because of the news. But yeah, so don't feel bad because I think I took it just as bad.
I walked out of that thing at that fishbowl at that draft thinking, man, oh man, my team is so good. Okay, it was not good, Jim. It was not good. So how are you doing in the fishbowl? Are you still in it?
Made the playoffs, bounced pretty quickly.
Oh,
Nice.
You know, and I love the system they run, but the carryover of points, I think that had it not been a carryover point, just like team against team like in regular fantasy football playoffs, I think I could have moved up a little bit. But all that said, there's a lot of better teams than mine. I took a couple quarterbacks early. Deshaun Watson, A, didn't pan out. B, got hurt. Trevor Lawrence didn't really have the season we thought he would. And but otherwise, it was a fun draft. Made a lot of new friends.
that was the best day. That was one of the top 5 best days of my life.
And you got the ring.
I got the ring. Carla, they were giving away all these. You had to buy raffle tickets, it was all part of the day. And it was so great. There were all these great prizes. And, Andy Behrens just thinks he's this raffle king. But you know what? I won like 4 things that day. So, and the one thing, they had a Trophy Smack ring there. And the Trophy Smack had donated to each live draft. And I'm like, man, I'm going to get that ring if I win, And everybody's like, don't pick the ring. You're going to jinx yourself. You're not going to win. You know what? I'm not winning Scott Fishbowl anyway. So that ring went home with me.
I told you to take the ring. I said, I didn't even know you were trying. You got to go take that ring.
You know, girl.
Yes, I totally said that. I don't know if you remember that, but
I do. And that thing is on my dresser, man.
That's amazing. I can't. Jim, you want to share the story about the Coventry behind your back?
Oh, yes.
Wendi and I, we both know about it. Can you share that?
So I was in a Bible study probably 10-ish years ago, and one of the gentlemen in there had been in construction, like subdivisions, things like that. And I think they were maybe changing up a subdivision, and he actually found the sign in the garbage. He goes, I know Coventry. So he grabbed it and he brought it to me. Here's a gift. It's one of the coolest gifts I ever received. I mean, and I didn't even have to steal it. I mean, usually get a street sign, somebody's like chasing you down, like, that's property. You stole. Nope, didn't steal it. I was handed it to me.
That's an amazing story. The first time I heard it, it was just as amazing as ever. Well, Coach Greg is asking you something. I think you can see it. So
yeah, Joe and the 2 bald guys.
He's thinking you're the same person, is what I get out of that.
No, nothing wrong with that either. Joe's good company to be with. So
and there's another one, Scott Frankel. He's the same way.
Love Scott. Scott he's gonna be on XM either was tonight or he's gonna be on Thursday. And I know he's gonna be a visitor on the show for his Circa Millionaire. And he's advanced. He's still alive.
Yes, that is so awesome. You know what? I'm in a chat with the Fantasy Alarm, okay, and I got to be in their contest this year. I just got bounced out this past week, by the way. I made it pretty far, but Scott's in there, and he always every week he's like, "Hey, what do you guys think about this?" And everybody will run through scenarios. If Scott wins, we're all in this chat. He's flying us all to Vegas for a live draft for our group.
Wendi, I'm your sister. Add me to the chat, honey. Come on.
So I am all about Scott winning that. I would love to go to Vegas.
Yeah, profile picture. Thursday night, either myself or his partner Kenny.
And that's on the XM. That's on the XM spot. I won't be. I'm going to be on tomorrow on XM. I'm subbing in, but I wish I would have been on with Scott. That'd have been cool if it was the same night.
Yeah, so
Scott.
you've met Scott already,
Oh,
right?
we're good friends. We're good
Oh,
friends.
that's so awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, how good is he for this community? You know, he harasses the shit out of me, okay? But I wouldn't have it any other way.
Nope. Now, Scott, so anyway, RotoWire, we have our annual retreat, business meeting, vacation in Vegas. Well, Scott obviously lives in Vegas. And so last year, Scott came out and met me. We went out for dinner. I thought that was fabulous on his turf.
Great.
Oh,
I
and Scott
love
bought me
it.
dinner. Thank you, Scott.
Very nice.
Yeah, I
So
think I
where-
met him this year at the expo. So I can't wait
You
to.
can't forget Scott if you meet him. I mean, he is
I
typical
didn't.
like
amazing.
mobster working at the casino guy, okay? Pit boss, that's Scott.
He offered me a drink, so thank you so much, Scott, for that. And I cannot
He
wait
is
to see
all
you next
right.
year. He's so
He's very
generous.
supportive.
Oh
Everybody,
my
you
gosh.
know, all of our friends here are just so supportive of this
Yes.
community.
So Scott is Luca Brasi from The Godfather. Yeah. Yeah, Scott the muscle.
Now we have.
Oh yeah, that's gonna stick. That one's gonna stick. You know,
Oh my
so
God.
Jim, where do you actually live? Where are you from?
I live in a cave. This is like underground where I'm at right now.
Okay, the Bat Cave.
The Bad Cave. Yes. I love that. Oh, man. I'd put that. I'm a little short, but I'd put that costume on. Yeah, I totally would. Anyway, I live outside of Chicago near Joliet. So, yeah, just outside the Joliet area.
Okay, all right. So, are you originally from that area?
Yeah, the geniuses in my family tree decided to plant down in this sub-zero temperature, and then in the summer at 100 degrees at high humidity. I guess work must have been plentiful. I'll give them that, but I'm the idiot who stayed.
So, are you a Bears fan then?
Growing up, I was watching football when I was 5 years old. Now, there were probably 28 teams in the league at the time. I was a fan of 27 teams. I hated the Bears. I realized at a young age they hired buffoons as coaches. They hired
That hasn't changed.
No, they hired this dude named Neil Armstrong. Last I knew, he flew to the moon, and it wasn't like a Josh Dobbs, the astronaut thing either. He's out of a job now too. And then they hired this Abe Gibran guy, and it didn't get better. Jack Party, it never got better. And then, funny enough, they win the Super Bowl in '85. You know, the old timers always talk about him. Ditka. It wasn't Ditka. They stumbled into Buddy Ryan, the defensive guy. He was the whole brains behind the operation. I mean, Ditka was a great motivator, but even Chicago couldn't get that right. The guy they should put on the pedestal was the guy that they didn't. But anyway, now though, I'm an analyst. I love all 32 teams equally. I brought them into the fold.
Okay, I was kind of wondering. I mean, but do you have a favorite at all?
You know, I mean, honestly, when you would grow up and you would watch sports and it would sound like the announcers were impartial. I always thought, how do you do that? And then after I was in the industry for a number of months, maybe a year, it's like, okay, I get it now. It becomes objective. And I don't know, I almost think to be the best you can, objectivity kind of wins. And because if your heartstrings are tugging at a player, it's going to influence your view a bit. Now, I liked the 49ers for a long time, and it's still cool to see them excel, but I don't feel any extra rush for any one team winning.
You're not like emotionally attached to
No.
anyone. Yeah. And I get that. You know what? I have zero. So, I mean, I don't have the same thing that you're doing. So I'm a Dolphins fan. And I know my friend Chris is in the chat here. He hopped on, and I want to say thank you for coming because he's a big Dolphins fan as well. So I love my Fins, and Carla's a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, I know that. Now, Scott posted a line here. This is a good story. I'm a closet Browns fan. Here's what happened. So basically, you do your offseason research. And I'm like, oh, man, the Browns are going to the playoffs this year. And at the time, looking at the roster, I go, they got an outside shot at the Super Bowl. And so RotoWire, we have our party, and then Scott was out there. I saw Scott out there. Well, they had all these stickers of NFL helmets that you'd put on your lanyard. Fine. So I look in there. I don't have a favorite team. I grabbed the Browns one. And now all the guys are busting my chops. Browns. I thought you liked all teams. I go, no. Browns are making me money this year. My biggest bets were the Browns to make the playoffs. I think they have to win one more game to get in out of 3. I'm optimistic about that. But this team, all the injuries, I mean, everybody has injuries. They have had the mother load of injuries everywhere, both sides of the ball, and yet they still are winning games. So that was my coolest call in my career, because they could have not had more adversity than they have, and they're 9-5.
So what were the odds of them making it?
It wasn't catastrophic. I mean, it was plus 120, 130. So but it was
It's
good
money.
odds. It was good odds, right?
Yeah.
It was good odds, I thought. For a team that I thought was a lock to make the playoffs, and you're not playing minus money to get them, I thought plus odds. And then what I do is, well, in the preseason, DraftKings has these profit boosts. So you can get a 50% profit boost here, a 30%, and all the profit boosts, I just dumped them onto that one. So it may have been plus 120 or 130, but it was way better than that with the profit boosts. And so if they cash, I got a whole bunch of money coming in the account.
There's dinner.
It's a lot of dinners. That one's a lot of dinner. I really bid hard on the Browns this year.
Go Browns!
Yes, just one more win. Just one more win.
Jim, do you want to share our story from the Expo in 2021?
Yes. So I figured, you know what? It would be great to catch some dinner with Doug and Carla. We got to make this happen. And that whole Expo weekend, now Doug and I are in the Kings Classic. And that the Saturday, it revolves around that from early morning until probably 4 in the afternoon. It's a whirlwind. But you got to make time for everybody and the important people that you really had to see. You got to carve out a dinner time for that one. And so, sorry, we're going to dinner. So we say we're going to Jersey's. Now, the only jerseys I knew of was on the site of where they actually had the Friday night party. It was like this little football field where they had these big screens, and there's a Jerseys there. So I get there, show up. They're not here. I call them. We're on the way. Okay, good. This goes back and forth. Well, whatever happens, they go, we're here. Where are you? I'm here. There's another location. And whatever happened between the back and forth, we never got it figured out. Like 3 times, right? Never got it figured out. And so we didn't have dinner. I think I ate dinner. I got 11 that night because at that point there was a function that we were all going to, like one of the big parties. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just go there. That was hilarious. So this year, I don't know how we figured out. I think there was only one Red Lobster in town. So I think we just found a place. There was one location. And it was pouring cats and dogs out. But fortunately, I have no hair to mess up. So for me, it wasn't an issue. And Doug had the good sense to drop Carla under the car, or whatever, the roof they had. So that was a good thing. He had to deal with a little bit of water. But you know what? Doug's up to the challenge.
I know, right?
Doug's not gonna melt.
No.
He's always up to the challenge with me. But I can't believe it that they had 3 places in just one. We went to 3 different places and we couldn't find Jim. Next time we will have the address.
Or we'll pick a location with one location.
Oh my God, I can't believe it. It was funny though. It's a funny story to tell every single time.
It was. It stunk that we missed out on dinner because that was some quality time we could have. But at least this past year we did have a nice time at dinner. So so I'm glad that finally worked out.
I know.
It's so hard, it's so like time management at the Expo just does not exist.
No.
I mean, at least my clock management is really bad. It was bad. I think I learned a lot this year, of what I want to do and not do next year. And, so I mean, I love draft night out. Did you do draft night out, Jim?
Because
you went to King's Classic.
No,
yeah, that's right. That's right. I popped in that room, and it's intense in that room.
The specific room I'm in, the Jim Brown division, we got 5 or 6 radio, TV personalities in there, and a number of other people as well. There is a major personality. Not everybody shows it during the drafts and the auctions, but there's a combination. There's probably 5 or 6 that partake, and it is insane energy. I could see why XM likes to broadcast in that room, and I could see why, because it's a show. It's the draft, whatever. The show that gets put on, like the talking that goes up, the bantering, the personalities in that room, there's some really big personalities.
And either it was really hot in that room or people were just sweating. It was so intense. I looked at, I'm like, oh, I gotta go. I mean, I was getting anxiety watching that stuff, and I'm like, so I went over to the Queen's Classic when they were drafting, and that was intense too. Let me tell you.
Oh my God.
And so the King's Classic is that an auction?
So there are
Okay.
2 drafts. There's an auction and a snake draft. There's one of each. The goal was when this started in 2018, maybe 2019. I can't remember which one it was. I always forget which year it started, 2018 or 19. But there were just 2 leagues. There was no expo at the time. There were 2 12-team leagues. But it always did it was an auction and a snake draft. And the purpose was to come out of the weekend with content, because we had XM there from day one. And if you're going to sell the drafts to the public, you want to sell as much, the broadest audience you can get. And so both of those draft types would draw in people. Now, we expanded those to 14 teams, and it was good for the league to do that. I don't know how great that was for marketing, because the standard public leagues are 12 teams. And so the 14, I get it, because he had to grow. I almost would have had an extra league added, because ultimately, again, the point is pushing content. 14 leagues aren't necessarily relevant to probably 70% of fantasy players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I will have to ask you something though, but I see in at the expo that they have Sirius XM in just one room than the other rooms. Like, what differ for that? Like, why it's just concentrating on one room, and what's different from that?
So the league I'm in is mostly media personalities. Most of us, half of the room, because they expanded and they had relegation, has changed, but most of us were either on XM or on media. XM likes to work with media people because they know what they're getting. If they're calling you on, they know what kind of interview they get. If they call you on, they don't have if they don't know who they're having on and it's a high profile show, they're going to be nervous about just calling anybody up. And even in the draft where we have new people in, they tend not, if they don't know the new people, they don't call them up. Howard Bender, Bob Harris, Jeff Radcliffe, Jeff Manns, myself, we're all regulars on the channel, so they know exactly what they're getting. If they call it, they know we understand the timing for breaks. That's all really important with radio. And if somebody isn't versed in radio, it's like you have to know the length of answers to give, when to get out of dodge, when to do a follow-up. It's a lot of nuance. And again, if they're putting on a live show with this, I think that's their focus, of making sure it's as pristine of a show for their audience as they can get. Does that make sense?
It makes sense in a way or another, but I would love to see that they would put more effort in bringing more people into that, like especially new people that they are coming, especially that they are, like Bob is expanding, I would love to see new faces. I would love to see new people getting that like exposure, to say the least. I don't know if it makes sense.
Oh, it totally makes sense. It does make sense. And like I said, on their end, they're a business. And on their business end, again, I think it's just them knowing what their ratings are. They know if Howard Bender's on, they know that people are going to be running to turn it on. Mm-hmm. If they know Bob Harris is on, oh man, Bob's on, we got to hear this. Man's the same thing. So I just think I get what you're saying. It takes total sense. Inclusion is king. But for a big high profile event where they're spending probably tens of thousands of dollars to come out and promote it, it's from their business interest. So
sure.
So does that? And it sounds weird, but your point makes sense, Carla. But does that make somewhat sense on their end?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Or maybe a little bit more exposure for the Queen's Classic.
Eventually, that has to happen, because this is the first year of the Queen's Classic, right?
Yes, it was.
So that was going to be, it would be tricky in year one. I'm sure they would want to see what's on, because they do have personalities in that room that are on XM as well. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of them. And I don't want to. I'm not going to. And I'm not going to say any names, because I'm going to leave them out.
Somebody. I know they were all queens. That's all we need to know.
I know there's 3 minimum, but there might be more, and I don't want to leave that one out. I'm not that guy.
Well, we had Bob Lung on the show a while back, and he was open to expanding the Queen's Classic because it really went over so well. And there's so many, great women,
Yes.
in this industry now that are really deserving, of that recognition. So he was open to that. So, hey, whoever's running that whole Queen's Classic, get on the ball. Let's go.
Chop, chop. No, and that's it. And I think Bob gets it. He gets the inclusion part. What he brought before the women came in, Bob brought international people in. He had I can't remember the name of the third division, the Len Dawson division. And that was great. International. Mauricio Gutierrez, many others, people I met overseas, just from Canada, Matt Donnelly, but just meeting people that were international. And now we have the Queen's Classic. It's just such a win-win across the board. And so, there has to be a day where Bob gets this up to 10, 12 leagues. Has to be. It has to happen. I know he'll do it. Bob's a visionary.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we heard the story of where that all started and where it's at now. Is just such I keep telling people, I don't know if Bob understands the magnitude of what he's done for so many people, and it's not about the football. It's not about football,
Nope.
so I'm very thankful for all of you pioneers. You've been around a long time. Like, you've been an analyst since 2007, right?
I mean, you're an OG. I had hair.
No,
it wasn't good hair, but I had hair.
We need pictures, Jim.
Picture it didn't happen. We need pictures.
I know, we need pictures. It happened.
So were you playing fantasy football before you started being an analyst?
1994 I began. 1994 I began.
Was that when you were like writing your lineup down and putting it in a bottle and throwing it in the ocean and so it gets to your opponent?
Close. Yes, you would. So I was the commissioner of my league. It was a 10-team league. 9 people would call me with their lineup. I would call my opponent to give them my lineup for full transparency. And yes. And I would do a league report each week. It was faxed to them because email wasn't like prominent yet. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. Why did I date myself? Oh.
That's crazy.
Cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, that was out a long time ago.
Jim,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask if you have a home league. I wanted to wrap that up. Do you have a home league that you run, or?
I had a home league. That league I started in 94 it was a very unique league. I've always tried to do things that were good for a league, but different than what everybody else did. So first thing, I made a contract league. When you signed a player, you automatically assigned them to a 1 to an 8-year contract. You could always cut a player on the last year of his deal. We had a franchise tag, so 1 year you could fiddle with a contract. But if you signed an 8-year deal to a rookie coming out and he was a bust, unless you wasted one of those precious franchise tags to get rid of him, you were saddled. And so you had to be very careful. The second thing we did was, I hate the luck factor. Anything I could do to lower the luck factor. So what we did was this. We did 11 weeks of doubleheaders, and then only 4 teams made the playoffs. Now, the teams that missed, they had a round robin for money. Everybody played everybody once, and there was a championship. So they had some money on the line. But the last 4 teams, 2 out of 3, and then 2 out of 3. So you had to win 2 out of 3 against a team to advance, and you had to win 2 out of 3 to win the championship. And to me, that lowered enough of the luck factor. Usually, the best team won or was right there.
I mean, that's like seriously like running a team like that. Like that's crazy. That's a cool story.
Oh, but to answer the rest of it, it ended. The league ended. So what happened was the league went for like 25 years, maybe. So try to do the math on this. Yeah, probably about 25 years. And what happened was, so over the time, people had turned over, right? Not all the same people were there. And now my job was getting significantly busier. Radio, media responsibilities, heavier workload. So at that point, it was like the people in the league were now acquaintances. It wasn't like we talked outside of the league at all. And at that point, it was like, not worth it anymore. So I passed off the commissioner responsibilities, said I got it bolt out, and then apparently it just didn't go anywhere from there. So about 25 years. So that was my home league. Now, funny enough, now I consider my home league the King's Classic.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Heck yeah. Well, those are all your buddies.
It's what's happened, right? It's totally what's happened.
Yeah. I mean, the people you actually do talk to. So,
Right? Imagine
cool.
that. Only
Yeah.
where you actually like everybody.
Jameson was saying he was 1 year old in '94.
I saw that comment, Jameson. 1 year old in 1994.
Heck, I'm surprised he was even born. I figured he was born in like 2000 or something. Jameson, I met Jameson at the restaurant outside the expo on that first afternoon. We got there Thursday. And Jameson, man, I got to give that dude a lot of credit.
I agree.
He walked into a room with people who he knew, but didn't necessarily know him. And I loved it. He walked up and I saw him. I knew he was looking for, to fit in. And man, come on in, man, sit down. Hang out. You're one of us. It doesn't, yeah, it was great. Good dude. Got to talk to him quite a bit.
I love Jameson. Yep. He is awesome.
I agree.
Matter of fact, after the whole rain, after the Friday night party when it poured down rain, we were all at the DoubleTree, and I needed to get my Uber to go back to the hotel because I may have had a cocktail or two. Okay, so I knew, so I'm like, well, and I had never used Uber before. Okay. Usually people that I was with just did it, so I never really had the app or anything. And I was having such a hard time. I was getting very frustrated, and I'm like, I just want to go. And, I mean, it wasn't real dramatic or anything, but Jameson stood by me. He waited with me until the Uber guy had me in the vehicle and I pulled away. He did not leave me there by myself.
That's a gem. That's a gem.
It's a good dude. That's a good dude.
Thank you, Jameson. So, Jim, knowing you personally, I know that you were a teacher. So my question for you, how did you start your teaching journey and how long you've been a teacher?
I retired from teaching. I taught for 33 years, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah, I taught for a long time. And since then, I've been full-time RotoWire. It was tough doing part-time because fantasy football, there's no such thing as part-time. I might have been part-time. Oh my gosh, the hours. I wasn't sleeping. Those 4, 5, 6 months, you don't even sleep.
I remember that. Yeah.
Forget it. But how did I get into teaching? It wasn't my plan. I had no intention of becoming a teacher. So I go to Loyola University, playing baseball there, young, dumb kid, right? Typical. And not typical to me. I'm a dumb Cicero kid, So anyway, a suburb outside of Chicago. So anyway, my guidance counselor, I go to him and I say, talking about majors. Now, this is back, dial it the way back machine. I'm talking to him in 1984, my sophomore year. And he gives me advice at the time. At that day, it was good advice. He said, major in what you like, and then you'll be able to get a career and you'll get trained in what you do. Well, obviously, he didn't have the ability to have the foresight to realize the world was like on the brink of changing, where you had to be specialized. So this idiot has a philosophy degree, which is a wonderful degree, but there aren't too many philosopher jobs out there. So now what am I going to do? I am basically stuck. So now I'm out of college and I have a piece of paper that says I'm somebody, but in reality that I'm not somebody. So what happens? So I've got to find one of my friends tells me who's in the same boat. Oh man, a lot of places, if you have a degree, they'll hire you as a manager, whether it's a store manager, a restaurant manager. So I get hired by Pizza Hut as a manager and I'm doing this thing. And I'm finally realizing, all right, if I do this, I'm going to be doing nights, weekends, holidays for the rest of my life.
Yes.
Not so much. Oh, thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it. Thanks. Yes. You can just call me old. Make it real easy.
I feel old too.
So, oh my gosh. Now, where was I at? I was all right. So anyway, when I realized that, I go to this idea of, okay, if I'm going to be in business, I need to get a business degree. So I enroll in classes to get a business degree. And I'm just starting. And then I get a call from my mom. The school system, she worked in the school system like as a clerk. She goes, they need substitute teachers. And it was a perfect job to work while you're going to school, because if you're a substitute teacher, you had to have a degree for that. You only use a bachelor's degree. So you're there from 7 to 2, you're done. You're not grading papers because you're a sub. And then you just go and work on your degree. Well, I was in those classrooms for about a month, and I realized, oh man, this is what I'm supposed to do for a living. I always knew I was called to a life of service. That I knew. I wanted to be like a preacher at first. When I was young, I thought being a preacher. That's what I wanted to do because I wanted to. I only. How do you serve people? And as a young person, well, you go to church, and you're like, well, that's how you serve people. But that wasn't my path. And then it stumbled upon me. Everything in life happens for a reason, right? But anyway, that turned into me within a year. I switched my class from business to education, got my credits. I was in a classroom and beautiful career. Loved, most beautiful thing about that career. One parent complaint and the principal called me in and said, "Oh, that parent's nuts. Don't worry about it. Just tell me what happened." All right, we're good. And that was it. But never had parent complaints. Students never had issues with them.
Things were a lot different back then.
But I retired just a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yes.
It was a long time.
No. And here's what the deal is. And I want to tell everybody, no matter what your profession is,
I agree.
treat people like human beings. Treat them like they matter. Treat them like they're important. Treat them like they're special and mean it. And if you could do that, it is almost always going to come back that way. And that's what was my life in teaching.
I agree with you 100%. And being a teacher, I spoke with you in 2021 and we spoke about that. And you gave me a lot of good advice. And I started as a substitute like you, and now I'm a teacher. So I agree 100% with that.
So excited for you too.
I am. I'm super excited. So a question that's connect the student with being with the football industry. So if an insecure student was looking to improve their self-confidence, what advice would you give them, especially since you are now in the fantasy football industry?
So any person in general, like in school, asking how to raise their self-esteem, it's a really difficult answer because here's the problem. And I don't think I have a canned answer for that because every human being is different. It's when I knew kids, which I knew them well, kids were never afraid to come talk to me. But you got to know the individual before you give them advice. There are certain kids I knew, like some of their upbringings, there are certain things I couldn't tell them because that wasn't going to be in their frame of reference, but I could find something for them that would help them based on how I knew them. So my answer is, it all depended on the kid. And as a teacher, if you don't get to know the kids,
you can't.
There's nothing to it because those relationships, this is the 80-20 rule. It sounds stupid, but 80% of the people will do things because they like you. It's that simple. No matter what you're doing, it's that simple. And I learned that in teaching because I treated kids very well. They, in turn, were happy to give me what they could.
What grade did you teach, Jim?
I started out a couple years at the junior high, 7th, 8th, and I was a high school teacher the whole way through then.
High school. Yeah. And I'm telling you, I guarantee that you were the cool teacher. Like, I bet you everybody loved Mr. Coventry.
Man, it was awesome. The kids would always come by to say hello to me. Even when I wasn't teaching them, they'd come by, make a detour to pass my hallway. Again, you treat people like they're special and you mean it. They know you. They could spot a phony a mile away.
I totally agree.
So,
and I have it. Like, I have a teacher, like couple teachers that come to my class and ask me about that student. Why this student come to your class and she never comes to our class? I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm special. So I do believe I'm special because she never go to any other classes. So I think I'm doing something good, which is, I agree with you 100%.
Well, and my goodness, teachers didn't look like that when I was in school, Carla. Look at you. You're gorgeous. You're so good to your students. I know how much you care about your students. And teaching is a special career. It really, and it's not meant for everybody. I know I couldn't do it. That is just not up my alley at all. And so you almost have to have a passion because you're not getting rich. I mean, teachers, they make money like everyone else, but not enough. You guys didn't get enough because, you really have to have that passion. So thank you both for being teachers.
You know what, Wendi? I had an unpopular stance among teachers, and it still will be unpopular to this day. The stance was this. I was almost glad they didn't pay teachers what they deserved, because if they did, people would have got into it for the wrong reasons. People would have said, if they paid minimum 6 figures and that was a starting point, you know how people say, oh, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor for money. Not that everybody that does. A lot of people are in for the right reasons.
Sure.
But the thing is, oh, I want to be this because there's money. If teaching had money, you would have had people getting in there for the wrong reasons. And look, it would have been great to have gotten paid more. But I know that if it was a competitive field where people were like just jumping over others to get those jobs, I would have never had that job. I would have never been able to make the difference I made.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I think, with both of you. I mean, I'm not sure, but I would think if you felt that you changed one student's life, that was worth it, wasn't it?
Yes. And you know, very rarely do people come back and tell you the impact you had, but once in a while it happens.
They do.
And that's all you need.
Yeah.
Once in a while to know you made a difference. And I think I was spoiled because there was a good number that would email me 10 years later, 20 years later. Before I retired, I got a message from somebody who was in my class, my first year in another school I taught in, and 9/11 had hit. And the student wanted to tell me that she was involved in something looking back on 9/11. And she remembered that my calm in the classroom that day always stuck with her. And that was like almost 20 years after the fact. That blew me away.
That's so awesome.
That's amazing. I love it. I mean, I don't know if you heard, but I have Sally, January 4th. She's coming into my school and she's going to talk about her, compassion with her one-eyed dog. I'm so waiting for that.
Fabulous.
Okay, so we have a question. I want Jim to answer this if you don't mind, because
Yes.
I don't know the answer to this. Who do you predict for the Super Bowl?
Well, the winner right now, how do the 49ers not win?
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, my goodness. And I know they had that stretch of 3 games where they had lost Debo and Trent Williams, and every team gets injuries, but they're a stars and scrubs team. And if they specifically lose a couple of those key pieces, they won't win. But man, I don't know who could stop them. And defensively, they can do more than enough. Yeah, I think they steamroll.
Christian McCaffrey, oh my gosh. Amazing. League winner there. But
that's the MVP. It's not the quarterback. He won't win the award. He's the MVP.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I want to talk a little bit about the FSWA Writer of the Year nominee and finalist and in 2022. So how do you get nominated for that? Like, did they show up at your door, knocked on your door, they're in a suit? Okay.
And I'm lucky because I would never have been nominated because the nominations have to come. You have to send in your stuff. I hate awards. I would never. RotoWire on my behalf submitted for me. So RotoWire took a bunch of my stuff, sent it in. They have a panel of people who they go through, and obviously, not obviously. I found out football by far has the most people submitting. Football's a moneymaker in fantasy.
Yeah.
The other sports are great, but football's the moneymaker. And so that's like the most gets sent in for that. And so I was just thrilled that RotoWire, considered me to send it in because I would never. I don't really care about it. I know I got a belt over my shoulder, wrong shoulder over that shoulder, didn't mirror my look. But that's pretty cool to me. But other than that, it was, man, it's just.
Well, and I went and looked at, the nominees and, people in the Hall of Fame. There is a lot of categories. I had no idea there were that many sports and categories in that writing association. So many great nominees. I noticed, all the names, not all of them. I'm fairly new to this, but, I did notice there was only one woman that is in the FSWA Hall of Fame, and that's Stefania Bell.
That'll change soon.
That's what I was hoping you would say.
Just remember, the women's movement in fantasy didn't happen until recently. That's been a real, not that women haven't been in it. That's a real recent phenomenon. These people who are in as Hall of Famers, they've probably been in it 20 years. Bob, OG, Dave Richards. And you think about the people who were in it. They were doing this for probably, by the time they got in, I don't know how long or when they got in, they were probably doing it 15 years already. So it's just a matter of just time. But
Yeah.
there's a ton of women who are going to be in that Hall of Fame.
That's
But
so
it's just
awesome.
because they, the movement just really hit in the last few years, where it's
Yeah,
been
that makes
big numbers.
sense.
So
That
that's all
makes
it is.
sense.
It's just time.
Yeah. Well, and Stefania Bell, I don't know, Tootsie Pop, she organizes a Women in Fantasy Football, and we have a little get together. And so this past one, Carla was there. So this past one, I'm talking, I'm just having a great time, even though I was still sick, but I didn't care. I did not want to miss this. All these rock star women. And all of a sudden, Stefania Bell comes in there. And I'm like, okay, does she know where she's at? Does she need to blink 3 times if she's being held against her will? I mean, I was just like, oh my, I just said it. I go, I'm totally fangirling. Stefania Bell is here. And she was so nice. And a thing that she did for ESPN on the wrestler or on the MMA guy, just so wonderful. When we got done with that conversation, I was like, well, anybody that's not following me, please follow me. And I'm like, okay, it's basically for you, Stefania Bell, because everybody else was already following me. And so I got off of there and she followed me. I'm like,
nice.
Oh, it was like, yeah, I was so excited.
Yeah, it's great when somebody's working for like a big platform,
Yeah,
and they have time for others. I think that's a big deal. It's a massive deal. I was, I did, ESPN is kind of its own empire, but I reached out to Stefania for the marathon that I had done in preseason August or so. And she came on. I thought it was cool. I was so happy you came on, Stefania. So yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, she's
That's
so
amazing.
smart, so beautiful.
I love that.
And she was just like sitting on her couch. She had her, hoodie on and her hat and stuff. And it was just like we were hanging out with Stefania Bell. Are you kidding me?
Jim, what qualities do you think contribute to being a good fantasy football analyst? And what qualities you think help people succeed in this business?
So the first thing, I'm going to qualify the answer. There are so many different micro audiences for fantasy football. There is an audience for everybody. The hardcore analysts, great. Middle of the road shotgun approach, there's an audience. Fun and frivolous, there's an audience. And success is how you define it. So realistically, you approach football the way you like. And if you put yourself out there and you're passionate about it, you will find the audience that's right for you. That audience could be small, medium, gargantuan, whatever you need it to be. But as long as you're true to it and you're having fun, there is no right way to do it. There is no wrong way to do it. How I do it, I'm different than a lot. Doesn't make me better. Doesn't make me worse. People who like the way I do it, they tend to move in my direction. But there's tons of audiences for tons of people. Everybody's welcome. Everybody fits. Everybody belongs. Is that a fair? I mean, is that a fair answer? I couldn't really answer your question because I really don't think there is an answer.
I agree. No, thank you. It's perfect.
Well, and how did you get involved with RotoWire? Like, how did that come about?
So I had worked with Draft Sharks. Lenny Papano owns that company. Jared Smola is chief editor over there. I was working with them since 2008, maybe. I had worked with Fantasy Guru for 1 year before them. And it was like an internship type thing, an unofficial internship. But anyway, what happened was work was diminishing a little bit. They're bringing in some more people that were local to the office, I think. And my work started to, scale down a little bit. And that was fine. So, I love Draft Sharks, great people, proud to be with them. But I saw the writing on the wall that work was lessening. They were dividing it up more, and I wanted to just be heavily involved. And so at that point, I reached out to a number of different companies, kind of cold called to see. Now, fortunately, I had the advantage of having had a lot of years of experience and name being out there. But RotoWire was gracious enough to take me on. And at first, you had to do some baseball. They needed more than football because a lot of people try for these jobs, right? And it was part-time. And so I did some baseball. And then after a couple of years, I just told them, I go, between teaching football, baseball, August is a big killer because you're going back to school and you've got football and baseball. And so they relieved me of the baseball duties. But they've been family, literally. even when I was part-time, treated you like family. Love everybody at RotoWire. They treat me like they treat everybody else, which is like royalty. But my big break was this. When we were at the Vegas trip, and as a part-timer, a lot of part-timers don't go. The full-timers go. I think it was somewhat rare for part-timers to go, but I went because the home office was in Madison, and then they had a satellite office in LA. And so I didn't really get to see anybody. So going out there was big. So when we went out there, I talked to one of our media guys. And I go, I really feel like our podcast need to be beefed up with content a little bit more. And he must have just had an opening elsewhere. And he said, I got something better. He goes, would you like to be on XM?
Hello.
What? So the way it started out was weird because you're on the Sunday show. All right. So the Sunday show, football kicks off in July. So I'm on the show in July and August. Oh, wait, September's football coverage. We lose our time slot in September. So it was awesome, but it was over before I blinked. But fortunately, about 3 years into that, it became where they put me on the Saturday show. So now that went all through the season. And then I had the truncated Sunday show. And then in the last 2 years, the XM producers were so gracious. And I know Sunday is like hallowed ground on fantasy on game day. Man, they blessed me and Alan Soslowski with a morning time slot on Sundays. So Saturday and Sunday, all from from July all the way through the NFL playoffs. But the XM has been the blessing because more people know me because of that. And I know people covet the weekday slots, but I think more people listen on the weekends because, look, if you're not on your commute, a lot of people are working during the week. And I got to meet and know so many people, and so many people knew me. Like when the expo started and people like knew who I was blown away by that. I'm just a dude with a job. That's really all I am. Dude with a job. They happen to put me here. But I mean, the graciousness of people, and they've treated me so well, and they don't really give me much garbage, which it means more than you know. But that's been the journey with RotoWire.
That is
That's nice.
awesome. Yeah. So we have
Wendi.
a question in the chat there. What's the key to consistency in content creation?
So Iggy, it's a great question for me. Every time I go about a specific part of my job, be it draft prep, be it week to week in the regular season, I decide what areas that I want to focus on. And then I create an efficient system to minimize time, to make the work tight, but less time consuming. So I will come up with methods that everything just becomes very efficient. And I find that I think a lot of the work that I do in 4 hours may take many others 10 to 12 hours. And I was like that as a teacher. I always found efficient ways to get it done right, but save every ounce of time that you can. And so for content creation and getting consistency, it's that having systems. And you could build on the systems. You could add in new things each year. Usually you don't change in year unless something failed, but you add to it. But having systems that keeps the consistency in place and reviewing it at the end of each season. What do I want to refine? What do I want to add? What do I think wasn't useful and I take out? It's constant reevaluation, but it's at the end of the season. That's the reflection period.
Nice.
So you do like 5 shows a week on XM? Oh.
So XM, I do the weekend shows. So I'm on Saturday and Sunday. Now, when somebody needs off during the week, I'll often sub. Like I'm going to sub Wednesday night, which is, if you're listening to this live, it's tomorrow. I'll be 8 to 10. And I'll probably come on for about 4 shows a month as a sub during the week. But yeah, Saturdays 1 to 3 Eastern, Sundays 9 to 10 Eastern. Those I'm on all the way through. So yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And I do the RotoWire live, and I do the RotoWire live show on YouTube. I do that 5 days a week. I take off Wednesday and Thursday, so I'm doubling up shows on Saturday and Sunday.
Yikes.
How do you prevent burnout, Jim?
Yeah.
Of work.
Easy answer. There's 2 parts to it. First is I pretty much exercise every day. Game day on Sunday, I can't because the gym opens at 7 and my XM show, my time is at 8. It's 9 for Eastern. And I got to be in show prep before. But I exercise every day. That starts things. But here's the most important, way more important than exercising. Audience. I get so much energy, and obviously I'm on the radio. I don't hear the audience, but they'll interact on the X. They'll message me. The energy and the enthusiasm and positivity I get from the audience, that energizes me to no end. I could do those shows. I think RotoWire, they probably think I'm crazy with all the shows I do. It's never work. I don't ever feel like I'm sludging through a show. I'm excited to be on that show. And like I was saying, I think I said this pre-show, I'm a little bit nearing that depression point now, because I realize most of that audience in a few weeks is going to be taking a break, and I'm going to miss the interaction and the energy they give me. So
what do you do in the off season? Is there an off season for you? Okay.
No. So, I mean, obviously I'm going to watch film on the college players, and I'm going to do profiles. And the way I like to do them, I like to project what position, like specific, like a receiver. Is it going to be, an outside guy that, beats man coverage? Is it the guy the first one we call the X? Is it going to be the other receiver who's a little off the line, free release? He's a Z. I try to figure out when watching these films how they're going to translate to the NFL. So that, and then also I'm going back over to previous year, because I have to rank all these players, and I want to make sure I have the best possible rankings for my audience. And so I work to refine. It's a lot of studying. It's a lot of systems. It's a lot of research. I'll write my own player profiles for every single player. RotoWire doesn't require me to do that. They have their, other people assigned those. I write my own profiles so that I have everything I want about a player there. And then if I get called on a show, I could just refer back to my notes too. And because, you're asking me in the middle of a rapid fire, and it might be the third string receiver for a team. Well, I got something. I just got to pull it up and take a quick look, and oh yeah, that's right. Here we go. So it's heavy work. And what's tough about it is during the season, everything's like lockstep. Like Monday at 8, I'm doing this. Monday at 11, I'm doing this. During the off season, it's just this big ball of work. I've got to get this done in 3 months.
Oh no.
Iggy is saying the depression comment reminds me of the Emperor Chuck Noll, who said the Super Bowl was a week of sadness for him because it meant the season was coming to the end. Yeah. I feel that way about being a college.
Yeah, Iggy's right. And it is because, and look we talked about this during the show, all the connections, all the friendships we make. And unless they're people that are personal to us, a lot of those friendships get put on hold for a few months. And there's a void there.
Yeah,
there is.
And there's definitely, in my circle at least, there's people that I will talk to all year round. I mean, they're going to have to lose my number in order for me not to contact them. Britt Flynn is a big one. Like she's so awesome, and I'll just random text her, and she always answers me. She's so great. So.
I did a lot of work with Britt this preseason this year. A wonderful, wonderful person. For whatever reason, I've become good friends with a lot of the Fantasy Alarm group, and I've worked with a lot of them. And
I love Howard Bender. He's like one of my favorites.
Love Bender. I don't bother Bender because he's too busy.
To meet him.
Like I rarely bother Bob Harris anymore. I rarely bother Bender to do work stuff because I know they're asked everywhere all the time, and it's like, all right, I'm not going to ask you to come on with me because you need to get a break.
They would, though. If you ask them,
of course they would. Yeah. But I'm not doing that to them. But I know how much they get called on. So yeah. So if Bob will call me on his show, great. I'll show up, and I'm happy to. And I love Bob. So I'm glad when he does, because I'd rather have him initiate it, because I know he's got the billion times the audience I have. So he's got a ton going on. Me, small potatoes.
Jim, did you watch Seahawks and Eagles yesterday?
I did watch Seahawks and Eagles. Woo!
What's your intake into this game?
So the biggest takeaway, and I think a lot of us have seen the writing on the wall for a few weeks, the Eagles are in trouble. their odds of repeating it, making it to the Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean, all right, Dallas beat them in Dallas. San Francisco beat them.
Yeah.
But I had seen a little bit of writing on the wall throughout the year. The offense was scoring a lot of points, but they weren't cohesive. Losing to the Seahawks with Drew Lock at quarterback, yeah, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. That's my takeaway.
They are in trouble. I was in shock yesterday when they lost. I was in shock. I did not see that coming. I mean,
Nope.
even
Neither
for
did they.
KC,
No.
KC, yes. Even for KC, I'm not seeing them winning this season. I don't know. I'm not seeing them go far.
The advantage that KC has is the AFC is weak this year. And even though the Ravens have the record, I'm not sold that they're going to be dominant. They could win. They could go to the Super Bowl. But I think any team in the AFC in the playoffs is live. And if you like the Chiefs, Mahomes' experience does mean something. I would not rule any team out of the AFC. But in the NFC, good luck getting past the 49ers.
Yeah. But he's not playing. Like, the team is not playing. They're not playing as they're supposed to be.
But they're starting to get Jerick McKinnon more involved. And I was telling people, the beat writer said, you won't see him much till the second half of the season. They know he's older. They're going to get him involved. Rashee Rice.
Pacheco's coming back.
And so Pacheco will get the early down roll, but McKinnon will definitely be the pass catcher. And Rashee Rice, he's starting to get better each week. Been good for 4 weeks now. And at that point, if Kelsey's been battling some injuries. I know ages might be it, but I think he's been battling some injuries. And if he could somehow get fully healthy for the playoffs with him, Rice, McKinnon, Pacheco running the ball, they're in better shape. They got a chance.
Kelsey is all the girlfriend's issue. He needs to step away from the girlfriend.
Don't say that. The Swifties will get upset.
I'm not saying the name. I'm not saying the name.
Don't make the Swifties upset.
I think Bonnie, JC, if you can put that question back. I'm sorry. Bonnie was asking a question. She wants to see if she plays Murray or Flacco and Dak or Tua for this week.
Oh, there you go.
So Murray, I'm really concerned about. Chicago's defense is playing through the roof, especially at home the last month. They are a completely different team. I don't think the Cardinals are scoring many points. Flacco's throwing the ball 44 times a game. That's volume. And like I said, Murray right now, concerning. So of those two, I'm going to give Flacco the edge. Dak or Tua is tough. Now, here's what I'll say. Miami gives you the middle of the field. Their whole goal of that Vic Fangio defense, limit explosive plays. I put a shell over the top. Well, Jake Ferguson in the middle, that's going to be open. CeeDee Lamb, since the bye, they've figured out. Put him where the defense has a weakness. He'll be over so they'll be able to attack with Lamb and Ferguson over the middle of the field, where Miami will give you those plays. Tua, on the other hand, when they play a defense is capable of playing well, there's two things you do to them. If you disrupt the timing of the receivers by getting hands on them and you get quick pressure, they're in trouble. And in this specific matchup, Dallas could do those. And the offensive line, Miami lost their center, Connor Williams, for the season. They're banged up. I think Dallas gets pressure. I think they press the receivers. I think Tua has a real rough game. So I'm going to go with Dak there. Sorry, that was a really long answer, but that's how I do it.
That's a really, really good answer, though. And hey, was Tyreek going to play?
Don't know. And honestly,
that's a big difference, too.
It is, but even when Tyreek's played the last 2 years and they played a really good defense, they've been able to press him. And if you throw Tua's timing off, there's a couple things Tua can't do. Tua has to be able to anticipate and throw before the guy's there. But if you disrupt the timing of that, he can't feather a ball over the top. And also, if you could force him to throw to the outsides of the field, he's far less effective on the outside. There's a book on him. But the defenses have to be able to cash the check. Dallas theoretically can cash that check.
Yeah. And, and I'm a Dolphins fan. I want Tua to be the answer. I really do. I'm not convinced that he's the answer. But, man, it's been a fun year as a Dolphins fan.
Yeah, especially when they're at home playing bad teams.
Yeah. Hey,
They've been
it's a
beating them.
win, Jim.
No, and
Okay.
I'm not complaining about it. No, I'm just saying it's no, really. They have been fun to watch when they're playing a bad team at home because they're dropping 40s. I mean, that is fun
Randy
to
is
watch.
right. Randy is right in that. I agree with Randy. Jim, would you rather have a few good friends or a lot of casual ones?
It sounds like an easy answer. It sounds like an easy answer. See, casual's tough to answer because it's got to be a few close friends. It has to be. But I love people so much. It's hard to answer because I like knowing a ton of people, and I like to me, it's about the exchange of positive energy, and that could be done with casual or good friends.
Mm-hmm.
Energy just means so much to me. Giving energy, receiving energy, synergism
And you do it very well because everyone gravitates to you.
And so that's why it's tough to answer. It'd be nice to have the few great friends, but even the people who are somewhat casual friends, they're better than casual friends.
And sometimes they become great friends too.
Yeah. So it's a great question. I don't have a great answer.
And we were both like the same. So we have like the same answer at some point. So I got it.
Yes.
Well, so we'll let you go soon, but I do want to kind of ask: do you and your family have any special traditions for the holidays, Christmas? What do you guys do?
So, well, before the actual holiday, we have a place. Well, everybody knows Macy's. It used to be Marshall Fields in Chicago, and they have this grand Christmas tree and this nice restaurant surrounding the tree. And it's called the Walnut Room.
Yeah.
And we always made a point to go to the Walnut Room for a meal and enjoy the tree and maybe go shopping. That was like the big tradition.
I love that. That's a good tradition that a lot of people do, and I've been there once, but it's it's really great. What about you, Carla? What are you doing? Anything special?
Yes, my kids are coming. I'm cooking.
Yay!
I'm baking everything.
Oh man, super mom over there.
Oh my god. I can't wait.
This year it's just my husband and I on Christmas Eve this year. Like I do Christmas dinner on Christmas Day at my house, but on Christmas Eve we have nothing to do. Like I'm like, well, I'm not going to cook that night. So we're going to go to New Buffalo. You've probably been to New Buffalo before, right, Jim? Yeah. So they have
I love that.
Every once in a while that does it to me.
Nice.
I guess I like the answer.
Yeah.
Go ahead, New Buffalo.
Well, they have a place there called Song Asian Cuisine, and they have like this killer buffet. And you know what? We are going to go and we're just going to eat out that night and eat so much, and maybe even stop at Four Winds Casino and maybe make a donation there. I'm not sure. Yeah. So this is like totally, something that it's going to be a new tradition apparently. So,
and you don't have to worry about football because the Patriots are playing.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody wants to watch that. Nope. I can record it, whatever. And then Christmas Day, my brother and his family come over, and we do a dinner here, and we play left, right, center. Do you guys ever play left, right, center?
Roll the dice,
so that we get into it too. He's 15 and he loves to take my money. We play for quarters, and I mean, when it comes down to the end, people are banging on the table and left, right. The money's flying all over. Everyone's laughing.
They're pounding.
Yeah, totally. So that's what our tradition is. So. So Carla, would you like to tell everyone what's going on these next couple weeks for us?
Definitely. Did your girl get to watch our happy birthday for her?
The 17-minute mark, she remembers it well. Thank you so much for wishing her a happy birthday. So special.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, 17 is really special.
No, I mean the 17 mark of the video. She's 15, but I remember at the 17-minute mark, she goes back to the roots of the while and checks it out. Yep.
Yes. Iggy shared positive energy. The hard rain couldn't dampen our spirit, Jim, even though we were caught outside.
So glad I've gotten to know Iggy. What an awesome dude.
Yes, I agree. So Thank you so much, viewers, for being loyal to the show and spending this hour with us. We're taking 2 weeks off, honestly. We're going to take 2 weeks off to, spend with our family, with friends for the Christmas, for New Year's Eve and holidays. But we're coming back in January 9 with a great crew and great episode with JC, Iggy, and Iggy's beautiful wife, Christina, and we cannot wait for that show to happen. And Jim, can you remind us, please, and remind everyone where we can find you?
The easiest place is on the X at Jim Coventry NFL. That's kind of the hub. Everything goes there. RotoWire YouTube 5 days a week, 11 a.m. Eastern, off Wednesdays, Thursdays. RotoWire Live. SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Channel. That would be on Saturday, Sunday. Saturdays 1 to 3 Eastern. Sundays 9 to 10. And if you want a free RotoWire subscription, rotowire.com/Jim. 2 days behind the paywall. No credit card needed. None of those shenanigans.
Look at that.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you again for the sports affiliation and for our man behind the scene, JC, for making sure that the show is running as smoothly as it is. And thank you, Wendi, for being a great co-host.
Oh, thank you.
I can't wait to poke you this holiday, these couple of weeks.
And thank you, Jim. My goodness, Jim, you're just such a great guy, and I'm so happy that our paths have crossed. And thank you for coming on the show. And I know it's taken a little bit of time away from your family, so we appreciate that. And Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Merry Christmas to all, and again, honored to be here. Thank you for gracing me with the presence of being here.
Can't wait to hear about everything tomorrow too. I can't wait for the show. See you guys. Bye.
All right. Good night, everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. See you after the New Year.